You're standing near the edge of a balcony, 10 floors up, and even though a solid railing separates you from the drop, your stomach still tightens. Your palms go damp. Some invisible hand seems to pull you back a step, even though nothing is actually wrong. Why does your body brace for a fall that isn't happening? The honest answer reaches back further than any building you've ever stood in. That tightening in your stomach isn't random. It's a message from ancestors who fell and from the ones who didn't. Your fear of heights wasn't designed for balconies or glass elevators. It was built for cliffs, tree branches, and rocky ledges where a single misstep meant broken bones in a world with no hospitals and no rescue. Back then, a fall wasn't an inconvenience. It was often a death sentence. A twisted ankle in the wrong place could mean starvation, infection, or an easy meal for a predator that noticed you limping. So evolution didn't leave your relationship with height up to careful reasoning. It hardwired a shortcut straight into your nervous system, one that reacts before you even register how far the ground actually is. Psychologist Karen Adolph spent years studying how infants learn to judge drop-offs, using a clever setup called the visual cliff, a table with a sheet of thick glass extending over what looks like a sudden ledge. Crawling babies, even ones too young to have ever fallen from anything serious, hesitate at the edge. Something in their perception flags the drop as dangerous long before language, long before any lesson from a parent. That hesitation isn't taught. It's remembered, in a sense, by biology itself. Here's where it gets stranger. Your fear of heights isn't really about the height at all. It's about the visual information your brain uses to estimate danger, and that system can be fooled in both directions. Researcher Alina Gibson, who designed much of the original visual cliff research, found that the sense of vertigo people feel isn't purely about vertical distance. It's about optic flow, the way your visual field shifts as your eyes scan a vast open space. Stand at the edge of a canyon, and your eyes have nothing close to lock onto. So your brain, deprived of stable reference points, starts treating the emptiness itself as evidence of danger. That's why a photograph of a cliff can still make your palms sweat. Your visual system doesn't fully distinguish between a real ledge and a two-dimensional image of one. This is also why standing near a tall building under construction, on a solid steel platform bolted into the frame, can feel far more frightening than standing on an actual rocky outcrop of the same height. The steel platform offers thin railings and huge gaps of open air below, maximizing that unstable optic flow. The rocky outcrop, by contrast, often has more visual texture nearby, more branches, more ledges, more places for your eyes to anchor. Your brain isn't measuring the drop in feet. It's measuring how much visual chaos surrounds the edge, and chaos, to an ancient nervous system, has always meant threat. Even your inner ear gets involved. The vestibular system, a set of fluid-filled canals that tracks balance and motion, sends constant signals to your brain about whether your body is stable. Near a height with fewer nearby objects to help calibrate that sense of stability, tiny natural sways in your posture, sways you'd never notice on flat ground, suddenly feel like the beginning of a fall. Your body isn't malfunctioning. It's simply losing its usual reference points at exactly the moment when losing them used to be lethal. Think about that for a second. Would you rather flinch at a glass floor that can hold 10 trucks, or ignore the one crumbling ledge that could actually kill? Your ancestors' bodies already answered that question, and you inherited the answer whether you asked for it or not. This wiring shows up in the strangest modern places. Glass-bottomed observation decks are built specifically to exploit it. Engineers know the glass is rated to hold enormous weight, but your amygdala doesn't read engineering specs. It reads open space beneath your feet as a fall in progress, and it floods your body with the same alarm chemicals your ancestors needed to grab a branch a half-second before gravity won. Neuroscientist Joseph Ledoux has mapped how fear signals like this one bypass your slower, more rational thinking entirely. A fast pathway rushes straight to your amygdala, triggering a full-body response in a fraction of a second, long before your prefrontal cortex, the part of your brain responsible for reasoning, gets a vote. That's why knowing the railing is safe doesn't stop your knees from locking. Knowledge lives in the slow system. Fear lives in the fast one, and the fast one built its reputation on being first. There's a reason this fear peaks at a specific distance too, rather than scaling smoothly with height. Researchers studying acrophobia, the clinical fear of heights, have found that the sensation intensifies sharply around the point where a fall would almost certainly be fatal, then plateaus. Your nervous system isn't tracking exact numbers. It's tracking a threshold, the rough boundary between survivable and not, a boundary etched into you by ancestors who needed a fast answer, not a precise one. This is also why children raised without much exposure to real height in flat environments with no cliffs, ladders, or trees to climb, sometimes show a weaker version of this fear at first, then develop it rapidly the moment they experience a real fall or near fall. The circuitry is present from birth, waiting to be calibrated by experience, the same way your immune system waits to encounter a virus before mounting its first real defense. Adolph's later research tracked crawling infants across hundreds of attempts at drop-offs of varying steepness and found something counterintuitive. Babies don't generalize their caution perfectly. A baby who learns to avoid a steep drop while crawling has to relearn that same caution almost from scratch once they start walking, because the entire relationship between their body and gravity has changed. Learning to fear a fall, it turns out, isn't one lesson. It's a lesson your nervous system keeps reteaching itself every time your relationship to your own body shifts, which might explain why that stomach drop can resurface at moments you didn't expect it. Like the first time you look down from a new vantage point, your body hasn't calibrated yet. Now here's the twist nobody expects. That same ancient height alarm has not been retired just because most falls today happen onto carpet instead of rock. It has simply found new places to fire. It fires when your career feels like it's on shaky ground, and you say you feel like you're falling behind. It fires when a relationship becomes unstable, and you describe the sensation as the floor dropping out from under you. It fires during a stock market crash, a phrase that borrows the exact vocabulary of gravity because your brain still reaches for height metaphors whenever something feels catastrophically unstable. Researcher George Lakoff, who studied how deeply physical experience shapes abstract language, argued that humans build entire emotional vocabularies out of bodily sensations like falling, because the fear circuitry came first and the words came later. You don't just use falling as a metaphor for failure. Your nervous system treats failure as an actual physical fall, complete with the stomach drop and the cold sweat. That's the modern mirror hiding inside every moment you've said things are collapsing. Your body doesn't know the difference between a cliff edge and a collapsing plan because both trigger the same ancient alarm built for a world where falling meant dying. Think about the specific phrases people reach for under pressure. A sudden piece of bad news makes your stomach drop. A public failure feels like plummeting. A risky decision feels like stepping off a ledge. None of these are casual comparisons. They're your nervous system labeling abstract, non-physical danger using the only vocabulary it has ever fully trusted. A vocabulary built from real cliffs and real falls, long before boardrooms or breakups existed to borrow it. Even the design of amusement park rides exploits this same ancient circuitry on purpose. A drop tower doesn't need spinning, speed, or spectacle to terrify people. It only needs a sudden, unexpected release into open space, the exact sensory signature your ancestors' nervous systems were built to treat as a 5-alarm emergency. The scream isn't really about the ride. It's about hundreds of thousands of years of ancestors for whom that sudden drop sensation reliably meant the ground was about to disappear. Consider the vertigo some people feel while simply imagining a high place, without ever leaving their chair. That's not weakness. That's your visual and vestibular systems responding to imagined depth as though it were real. Because for most of human history, imagining a fall vividly enough usually meant you'd actually seen one happen to someone nearby, and paying close attention to it kept you alive the next time you stood near an edge. Every single ancestor in your direct line survived long enough to pass on their genes without a single fatal misjudgment of a ledge, a branch, or a slope. Not one of them stepped confidently into a fall that killed them before having children. That's not luck. That's an unbroken filter, hundreds of thousands of generations of nervous systems that got just cautious enough, exactly when it counted. So what do you do with a body that still treats a glass floor like a canyon? You can't switch off the height alarm entirely, and you probably shouldn't want to. Researchers studying exposure therapy for acrophobia have found that gradual, repeated exposure to height in safe conditions slowly recalibrates the threshold, teaching your fast system new evidence about what's actually dangerous, without erasing the underlying wiring. The fear softens. It doesn't disappear because it was never a bug to be deleted. It's a feature that once kept a fragile, breakable primate alive on cliffs and in trees long enough to become you. So the next time your stomach drops on a balcony, or your knees lock at the top of a ladder, don't ask what's wrong with you. Ask what your ancestors were protecting. Somewhere in the architecture of your inner ear and your visual cortex, an old guard is still standing at the edge of every cliff you've ever imagined, still convinced that the ground below might disappear. You're standing near the edge of a balcony, 10 floors up, and for just a moment you are not looking at a city skyline at all. You are standing on a ledge 300,000 years ago, and something ancient inside you is grateful you stepped back.